How does the human body use electricity, and how can we use this electricity to power our own households? By Janine Daharne. Firstly, we get our energy from the food we eat. We need a little bit of all the food groups like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Then they are first broken down by the digestive system. First by the mouth, then the stomach, and then the small and large intestines. After the different food groups are broken down by the digestive system, they are taken to the cells of the body to produce energy by cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is a process where glucose and oxygen is used to produce carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, the energy source of the body. The minimum amount of energy the body requires for such as breathing, circulation, and organ functions is called the basal metabolic rate. And this varies based on genetics, sex, age, height, and weight. As the muscle mass decreases, the basal metabolic rate drops. Our body also needs small amounts of elements such as sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium to produce electricity. The elements in our bodies have a specific electrical charge. Our cells can use these ions to generate electricity. Cells are more negatively charged on the inside, while the outside environment is more positively charged. The flow of charges is what generates electrical currents. Electrical currents are what allows our organs to function. Now, after we looked at how the body produces energy and electricity, we are going to be looking at how organs use electricity and energy to function. The first organ we're going to look at is the heart. How the heart beats. How one heartbeat is produced from electricity that the body made. This process first starts with the SA nodes, known as the heart's natural pacemaker. The impulse starts in a small bundle of specialized cells located in the right atrium, called the SA node. The electrical activity spreads through the walls of the atria and causes them to contract. This forces blood into the ventricles. The SA node sets the rate and rhythm of your heart to beat. AV node is a cluster of cells in the center of the heart between the atria and ventricles and acts like a gate that slows the electrical signal before it enters the ventricles. This delay gives the atria time to contract before the ventricles do. His Purkinje network is a pathway of fibers that sends the impulse to the muscular walls of the ventricles and causes them to contract. This forces the blood out of the heart to the lungs and body. The SA node fires another impulse then, and the process begins again. One contraction is equal to one heartbeat, A heart beats 50 to 99 times per minute, but this can quicken if you do exercise, are high on emotions, have a fever, or on some medications, to over 100 beats per minute. In the future, I hope heartbeats will be able to produce electricity to power our homes and our workplaces, but at the moment, heartbeats are only used in a small scale to produce electricity. For example, to make a pacemaker that they made in 2019, which is a small device that sends electrical impulses to the heart muscle to maintain a suitable heart rate and rhythm. This was made by scientists, and it is made of 3 parts: an energy harvesting unit called the ITENG, a power management unit made of a capacitor, and the pacemaker itself. The ITENG is made of 2 layers separated by a sponge-like filling, which traps electrons at the heart, enlarges and contracts during pumping. These are then stored in the capacitor, which releases the energy to power the pacemaker. The next substance that we are going to look at is sweat, which our body secretes quite frequently. Sweat is produced by glands in the skin as a response to temperature or other stimuli. There are 2 types of sweat glands: the merocrine and the epicrine glands. Epicrine glands becomes activated at puberty, and they are in the armpits, groin, and around the nipples. This is secreted more viciously and looks more cloudy than the sweat that comes out of the merocrine glands, and produces a noticeable scent because of the bacteria that are present. Merocrine glands produce sweat our whole lives. Sweat is mainly made of water, but around 0.2 to 1% of the solute is made up of minerals, lactate, and urea. Sweat glands are controlled by the hypothalamus in the brain, part of the autonomic nervous system. Temperature receptors in the skin affect the body's core temperature, which in turn sends a signal to the hypothalamus. Each gland contains a myoepithelia cell that contracts when activated. This motion squeezes the glands, secreting sweat directly onto the surface of the skin. The University of the Grenoble Alps and the University of San Diego have developed a biofuel cell that can harvest energy from sweat. These scientists have developed a flexible conductive material made up of carbon nanotubes, cross-linked polymers, and enzymes connected to each and printed through screen printing. This type of composite is known as a buck paper and uses the carbon nanotubes as the electrode material. The lactate oxidase works as the anode, and the bilirubin oxidase as the cathode. A boost converter is used to increase the voltage to continuously power and lead. Last but not least, we also secrete feces that we can use to produce electricity to heat up our homes. This we can do by using biogas installations, Human feces contain about 75% water of the total volume. The rest is comprised of dead and living bacteria, protein, fiber, cellular linings, fats, salts, mucus released from the intestines, and some additional extras. Human adults produce between 100 to 250 grams of feces matter per day, but children produce less, but they're not completely sure how much less. And by this we can produce more electricity, like we do with fruit scraps, for example. This method is being used more and more. How a biogas installation works, as you can see in the diagram, is you put your human feces or food scraps into the digester and add water for wet digestion until almost to the top to keep the temperature constant and high. We insulate the digester and then we leave it for a while to produce methane, and this gas we can use to heat up our stoves and use as electricity by spinning a turbine. Now that we know how our heart, our sweat, and our feces can produce electricity to power our homes and our workplaces, we can see that it's very doable, and that people say that it's very doable, that in the future we can power our houses and our workplaces with our own body's electricity. For a household with one person, we would need 8 kilowatts per hour of electricity. For a household with 2 people, we would need 12 kilowatts per hour of electricity. For a household with 3 people, we would need 14 kilowatts per hour of electricity. And for a household with 4 people, we would need 17 kilowatts per hour of electricity. We wouldn't have to transfer our body's electricity like fossil fuels to a power plant, because it would be way more efficient and it wouldn't cost a lot to just every family do it at their house. They could power their homes at their house. It would be very doable. Thank you for listening to my movie, and I really hope you learned something, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to produce electricity from our bodies and use that electricity to power our houses and our workplace.